Hey guys, so as you may or may not be able to tell, yes, we are going to be doing some sewing today. Recently, my washing machine has been having problems and actually ended up destroying a ton of my family's clothes. So I actually have this huge pile of clothes right here that we are going to go through today and repair, because most of this clothing has some sort of like holes or rips or tears that need to be fixed. And as much as I love shopping secondhand for my clothes, one of the most sustainable things you can do is make the clothes you already have last as long as possible. So rather than getting rid of these or recycling or anything, I'm going to go ahead and repair them so that they can last even longer. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys exactly how to repair pretty much any hole, just because there's so many different types of rips here. At the end of this video, you'll probably know how to fix pretty much any type of hole or rip. So I am going to use my sewing machine for some things, but I'm also going to do some hand sewing, and for a lot of them, even if I do use my sewing machine, you can always sew by hand as well. So let's fix the first one. Okay, so the first thing we're going to fix are just these shorts. These are my Tommy Hilfiger shorts that I absolutely love. I wear them all the time, but I haven't been able to wear them recently because I actually ripped a pretty big hole in them right at the front of the short, so not a good spot. So we are gonna go ahead and fix this. So I think for this one, I'm actually gonna start with a little hand sewing just because it is a smaller rip and it'll give me a little bit more control, because sometimes on the sewing machine it's hard to sew exactly where you want. I'm starting off with a little needle and thread right here. Of course, for any one of these repairs, you're gonna wanna choose a thread that matches the color of your clothing item. And I'm actually going to be doing a ladder stitch to close up this hole. So let me bring you in a little bit closer to show you exactly what I'm doing. All right, so I've got my hole right here. And what you're gonna wanna do is take your needle, starting from the inside of the fabric, you want to push your thread at the bottom of your tear. Then what you're gonna do is go across to the other side and up. And you're gonna continue doing that to each side. Now, I find the trick here is that you want to make your upward sections as small as possible so that at the end there are a lot of them, meaning that you want the distance from this one to this one to be as close as possible. That way in the end it's going to look a lot better. You also don't want to get too close to the edge here, because then your thread will just pull and unravel. So you want to get close but not too close. And you're just going to continue this until you get to the top of your tear. And once you get to the top, you just want to do one final stitch down into the back of the fabric. And then all you have to do is pull on this thread in order to close up the hole. And then our tear is nice and closed up. Now, as an extra precautionary measure, I am going to sew a patch onto the back on the inside just to make sure that this doesn't get pulled on over time and it's nice and secure. So next I just went ahead and cut out a small piece of scrap fabric, sort of similar to the color of the pants, but that doesn't really matter because we're actually going to put this on the inside. So I'm actually just going to go ahead with my sewing machine and sew down all of these edges using a zigzag stitch, because that is going to be a little bit stronger. So for this stitch, you're going to want to change it over to a zigzag stitch. You're going to change the length to about 2 and the width to about 4. I went ahead and pinned my scrap fabric down, and now all we have to do is sew along all the edges. As you can see, the zigzag stitch starts from one side and goes across to the other. The trick here is that you want one side of the zigzag to go on the patch and the other to go off. It may be a little hard to see, but it will make more sense in the end when you can see it all done. Okay, so the shorts are done. They'll never be perfect again, but I think I did a pretty good job considering. And from afar, I don't think anyone is going to notice. So I'm super excited to be able to wear these again. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna repair are these shorts. There are a couple things wrong with them. First of all, it's missing a button, but that's super easy to fix. But then on the side here, it does have a hole right along the seam, and the pocket is kind of beginning to tear right here. So this one I think is gonna be pretty easy, so let's let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to fix is this hole right here, and what's really nice about this is that it's actually along a seam. We could technically do the ladder stitch like we did before, but I think what's going to be even easier is if we just flip it inside out, and on the sewing machine, just sew a line right here. So I'm just going to change it back over to my straight stitch and keep it at about a 2 length, and I'm literally just going to sew a line right down here. And guys, if you're new to sewing, just always remember to start and end with a reverse stitch. That way your stitch is not going to undo over time. So as you guys can see, all I did was do a stitch across here, and bam, when I flip it inside out, there's no hole anymore. That was super easy. It literally took me like 2 minutes. Now let's address this. So for this one, I'm kind of just gonna do the same thing. So yeah, this is the top of the pocket here. All I'm doing is flipping it up so that those 2 sides are attached. And then all I'm gonna have to do is sew across here. So for this one, same thing, I just sewed along here, and now that pocket area is fixed. I couldn't sew all the way to the end just because this piece was too thick for my sewing machine to go through, but it definitely looks a lot better. So lastly, all we're gonna have to do is fix the button. So I just chose a button here that I thought would suit the pants, but you also want to make sure it's a button that's actually going to fit through the hole. And ideally you do want it to be a bit of a snug fit, because if the button's too small, it's more likely that it's going to come undone. So I think this one's pretty perfect, and all I'm going to do is just take my needle and thread from earlier and sew it onto the spot where it's missing. So these shirts are all ready to go. Next up we have this shirt. So what happened with this shirt is the edges, like the seams here, got all torn up. So I think all I really have to do is just take the fabric, fold it inward, and then just sew a new hem right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start folding the new hem over and pinning it in place. So you can see my new hem I've created here and all the damage on the other side. So all I'm gonna do is just sew along here, trying to kind of match the existing hem. So it might be hard to see, but they clearly used a very small stitch length for this. So I'm probably gonna use maybe a 1 on my machine to match it. This is our new hem we just created, looking pretty good, but you can see the damage is kind of peeking on the underside, so I'm just going to give this a quick trim so it doesn't peek out. So I just trimmed off the excess, but what I think I'm going to do, because the underside is kind of visible, I'm actually just going to fold the fabric one more time and sew it down like that, just so it looks a lot neater and you don't see all these raw edges. So now, as you can see, this is the new seam and this is the inside, so if it ends up, you know, flipping inside out a little bit, you can't see those frayed edges anymore. And then same thing with this new seam. It looks a lot better than before. Next up, this might be one of the most common rips. It's basically just a straight up hole right here. And this one's gonna be pretty easy to fix, kind of similar to the ladder stitch method, but we're gonna kind of freestyle it. All right, so here's my hole. We're actually just gonna flip the garment inside out. Basically what I like to do is kind of fold my fabric in half, kind of like how we would do it if we were going to sew it on the sewing machine. And then I kind of just go for it and bring my thread just from one side over to the other, making sure to tighten it as you go. And because this is black fabric, it's going to be a lot more forgiving, so if it's not perfect, it's not really a big deal. And then of course you want to just finish that off with a little knot on the end. So then once you flip it inside out, you can see that it's not really noticeable and the hole's gone. So guys, one of the last projects I wanted to do was actually fix these nice Levi's shorts. A while ago I actually fixed this hole that was down here, but then I realized the zipper actually needed to be fixed, because as you might be able to see, the zipper actually just completely broke off. So what I'm going to do is replace the zipper. I've already gone ahead and started to seam rip the zipper off, so I'm just going to continue doing that. Alright, so I removed the zipper from the pants, so now I'm just going to replace it. I got this big bag of zippers from Value Village for only $2.99 apparently a while ago, and I thought that they would come in handy. So I'm just going to choose one that's closest to the color of these pants. I think this white one will work actually. And you do want to choose a zipper that is as similar in size as the original. If anything, you would want it to be a little bit longer because we can always shorten it. Actually, I think I'm going to go with this one just because it is a metal, whereas the last one I just showed is plastic, and I think this one will be a little bit more durable. I've got my zipper and I'm going to start by unzipping it to make everything a little bit easier. Next, I'm going to tuck the bottom of the zipper into the bottom part of the fly. On the left side of the fly, you may notice that there are 2 layers of denim, so I'm just going to sandwich the zipper between those 2 pieces so that just a little bit is sticking out. And because my new zipper is longer than the original, I'm just taking my scissors and cutting it off so it reaches just below where the button is. Then I can tuck that piece under the waistband. Once I had it properly placed, I went ahead and pinned the left side of the zipper into place. I did the same thing on the right side where I trimmed the zipper to size and put it into place. For this side, there is only 1 layer of denim, so you can just pin the zipper directly onto the fly, making sure the zipper's teeth are pointing outwards. Before I started sewing, I tested out the zipper just to make sure that it was in the right position and would be able to zip up and button up properly. Alrighty, so I've got my zipper pinned in place here. Ideally, you want to choose a thread that's the same kind of golden color as this contrast thread here. Unfortunately, I don't really have that. The closest thing I have is this kind of vibrant orange, and I think it's a little bit too different where it's gonna be noticeable. So instead, I'm gonna just use this light blue thread so that it hopefully just kind of blends in with the rest of the pants. So all we have to do now is sew it back on. Here I'm just sewing the zipper down, making sure not to get too close to the zipper's teeth. Once that was done, I decided to sew another line right beside the first one, just for a little bit more durability since this is going to be an area that will be tugged on a lot. Then I went ahead and repeated that onto the right side. And lastly, I just made sure to close up the waistband since we did have to seam rip that earlier. I recommend skipping over the zipper part here. I got lucky where I just sewed straight over the zipper where it's tucked in, but on the other side I actually ended up breaking my needle, so I would just end my stitch on one side of the zipper and then continue it on the other. Alright, so these shorts are all done. Honestly, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, replacing the zipper. I don't know, I thought it'd be more complicated, but now it is a completely functioning zipper, and these shorts are completely wearable again, so that is awesome. I'm just glad that they can live on as shorts for even longer. So those were all the repairs that I had to do today. Hopefully you guys learned something and some new techniques that can hopefully save your clothes. And you know, I hope I showed that repairing your clothes doesn't have to be complicated. You just really have to find the time to do it and do it. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.